back then they really didn't have anything. It was just like, we're just going to try these medications and just see what happens. But really, they said, there's not a whole lot that we can do for you. Prepare yourself because you're going to lose your faculties, you're going to lose your mobility. And then when I saw the women's bodybuilding, I was like, oh, I want to do that. Growing up with the Wonder Womans of the world and then the American Gladiators thing, I'm like, I can see myself doing that. So I think we live in a very fast-driven culture now that doesn't really allow people to mature in sports the way that they really need to. The lifestyle itself is also not the healthiest at all times. So there are a lot of factors, the stress of it all. There's a ton of stress in that environment. I am able to get 30 minutes on the step mill now versus, walking for 3 minutes on a treadmill and needing a rescue inhaler.
All right. Well, welcome to have you here. So it's good seeing you. We met in, Tulsa, Oklahoma about, I guess 2-3 months ago. And, at Clay Clark's event there, and you stuck because you're physically impressive person. You're a bodybuilder, and it's you obviously stick out from the crowd. I guess maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into what you do, and I know you've got a company where you guys are making alternatives to sugar, different sweetener type product, which we'll talk about. But I guess maybe tell us a little about your background.
Yeah, sure. So, my focus has always been on healing the body naturally, being mindful of what it is that we're consuming and all. But my health journey really started as a child due to my aunt being diagnosed with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. And you and I got to have a conversation about this over dinner, but the medical system really didn't have a whole lot of options for her. There were no treatments that were going to be available at the time, nothing that was going to help to reverse this disease. So my aunt and I kind of embarked on this journey of trying to get answers for ourselves. We became our own advocates when it came to health. So that kind of set the stage for me. So all my life, I've been looking for ways to help people in their health journeys because sometimes the system just doesn't provide answers. And you really just have to go in the process of discovery. So I started off in that vein, always searching for answers. And as I was growing and aging and maturing, I was really applying all these things to myself as well. Physical fitness, obviously, being very important to me, taking care of my body, using movement, strength training, and eating clean, healthy ways to just sustain health and prevent disease from coming on board. So just lifelong advocate for health.
Where did you said your aunt was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, the primary progressive form. Was she able to, obviously, if you go to a neurologist, they're going to say, we're going to put you on maybe steroid medications. There's not a lot of good treatment. There's a few newer medications out that they utilize for this, but how was she treated by the healthcare system? And was that something that was, did they, because what I typically see, and it's not, and I don't necessarily think it's the fault of the doctors, just because they don't have the education, quite honestly. They know what they know, which is drugs and procedures, and that's what they talk about. So they don't often discuss the fact that your lifestyle does actually have a significant impact on disease. I see it every day. How was that treated initially?
Yeah, back then, this was years ago. We were talking when I was a child. I'm 45 years old now, going on 46, but back then they really didn't have anything. It was just like, we're just going to try these medications and just see what happens. But really, they said, there's not a whole lot that we can do for you. Prepare yourself because you're going to lose your faculties, you're going to lose your mobility. And really, it's just going to be a slow, degradation of your system. And really, there was nothing for her. And that just really wasn't a good enough answer for her. And she decided very early on, my creator would never have given me something I couldn't shoulder first and foremost. So she never lost faith. She never lost hope, but she just decided to embark out on her own journey and look at things like food as, a source to help mitigate the damage from the disease. So yeah, there really weren't too many options that were given to her. And we just watched her body slowly kind of break down until she started really implementing some other strategies.
So the other strategies were beneficial for them at some point, I guess?
Yeah, I would say so because, of course, you understand with primary progressive, that moves pretty quickly. And I would say she was able to sustain herself so much longer, retain her mobility and her strength. But yeah, I mean, she cut out a lot of different foods. I mean, she kept it really plain, really simple, just like stick to the basics. She used mainly like fish and chicken, and a little bit of vegetables, but there weren't a whole lot of fillers there. And the whole family was up in arms, and they were really like, you're going to kill yourself. You're wasting away. And she was like, I just don't need all the extra stuff. So it wasn't like loading up on potatoes and rice and all this other stuff. It was just meats and a little bit of vegetables. And
Yeah, I mean,
you feel like that helped her out significantly.
I don't know if you're familiar with, there's a physician, Terry Walls, who famously came up with the Walls protocol, and she, had put her MS, I guess, into remission, and it's very vegetable heavy, low on processed food type of diet, and I know we've seen a lot of success with people on sort of carnivore style diets with the same sort of thing, and so it's interesting. I think one of the things we're going to be doing is we just did a case series on inflammatory bowel disease, and we're going to be doing psoriasis, and then things like MS will be coming up very soon. So we'll be able to document some of the successes we've had with that. And hopefully that'll stimulate some sort of intervention trial so we can get away from just the, slam of medicine in there and hope for the best, whereas, actually attacking the root cause of the disease makes more sense. So how did you get into bodybuilding specifically? Because there's a lot of sports out there. Did you have an athletic background? Like, I can't remember. I know we talked about that. I forgot. But tell me the deal on that.
Yeah, actually, I never really got heavily involved in sports per se, but growing up, back in the day, they used to actually highlight all the bodybuilding shows. So my brother and I, when we were kids growing up, we would watch all these crazy competitions. You're watching these guys they look like perfectly carved out little statues standing on a stage. And I was like, and then when I saw the women's bodybuilding, I was like, oh, I want to do that. Growing up with the Wonder Womans of the world and then the American Gladiators, I'm watching all these, really competitive athletes, go through this gauntlet style thing. I'm like, I can see myself doing that. And I always just wanted to have that really physically fit, capable, because I've always been just a very hands-on, like get into it, get down and dirty. So I was always geared towards like bodybuilding. That was always my leaning. I did have a little bit of time in, the traditional things like gymnastics and ballet and stuff and dance, but really physical fitness and strength was what was appealing to me. But I've always wanted to do it. I think I saw Oxygen magazine when I was like 18 years old, and they were featuring all these really chiseled women in like figure competitions and fitness competitions. And I said to myself, I'm going to get on the cover of that magazine one of these days. And, at almost 40 years of age, I finally decided, okay, it's time to, either poop or get off the pot. So I entered into a competition and swept the competition and competed hard for about 3.5 years and made it to the pro level in figure competition. So I'm actually getting ready to make my pro debut in the figure division in the IFBB.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, obviously. And so, from the very beginning, you said bodybuilding, because some people come to it from, maybe like, I know on the men's side, it's like different sports, football, powerlifting. There's a lot of ways to get into that. But you said from the beginning, I just want to do physique competitions. And as you probably are aware, being into this, there's a lot of casualties from that. There's a lot of people that sort of striving for that perfection. A lot of people get broken in the process. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of it comes down to really understanding yourself and your boundaries and having kind of a realistic, idea of what it is that you want to do in this sport and in this world, because it can bring the best out of people, but it can also really bring out the worst in people too. And some people are willing to go to any and all extremes to win, and really not have regard for their long-term health in the process. And like, I'm not here to poo-poo on anybody regarding how they want to get there, but like, I know what my boundaries are. I have my set limitations. But I'm willing to give it 100% effort. I'll keep my diet straight. I'll put in the effort and the work, try to make sure I just continuously improve. But there are a lot of casualties in the sport, and I think a lot of it is just recklessness and not knowing when to dial it back. And some people just rely on extras far more than they need to because they don't have that work ethic really ingrained in them, or the fact that we live in a society that, everybody expects to be a champion right out of the gate. And they kind of forget that, when you look at the legends in the bodybuilding world, these guys were doing this for years upon years before they even had the smallest sampling of success. So I think we live in a very fast-driven culture now that doesn't really allow people to mature in sports the way that they really need to. So, I've been training since I was probably 14 years old, but I just decided to get into competitive sports later in life.
Yeah, similar to me. I mean, I started lifting weights when I was 13. I'm almost 58, so almost 45 years. And so it's just like one of those things where it's just consistency over time. And that's, and I'm by no means a bodybuilder. I mean, I got genetically, I just don't even have a prayer and the long arms I have and stuff like that. But so, let's talk about diet a little bit, because you obviously have a company, and we'll talk about this, that provides an alternative sweetener, and I want to talk about that. But so obviously you've used somewhat of a lower carb approach at times. I think maybe you said you dabble in carnivore, but talk about your diet.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for me, eating clean is just a natural. It's a given for me. But I am definitely heavy leaning towards meat-based diets. I do take in carbohydrates. We do cycle with those for my competitions. In my off season, it's pretty much protein, very small amount of vegetables, very, very small on the carbs. I make everything fresh from scratch. I plan ahead, obviously, and try to batch as much stuff as I can. But when I am in full-on contest prep mode, like I said, there is a little bit more manipulation of the carbs. And I think it's just because that old mentality in the bodybuilding world, like you have to do it this way, where I'm more like with like the keto Gregs and the bodybuilding space. And they're like, no, you can absolutely do keto and carnivore in bodybuilding. So I think for my next competition, I'm going to try going into that vein more so, and maybe just kind of stick with the straight carnivore side of things, because it's the best building block, really. And if I want to keep on building my muscles, more protein. I eat a ton of protein. But I try to get it mostly from my foods, not from bars and smoothies and stuff like that. I try to get straight protein from my food.
Yeah, that's one thing. A lot of people, when they rely too much on whey proteins and the various, there's all kinds of, candy bars, basically calling themselves protein bars. A lot of people have gut issues with that. I just, I was in Europe, just got back, was up 2 weeks. And while I was over there, I chatted with a guy named Eddie Hall, World's Strongest Man, and he's doing carnivore right now. So I kind of helped him with his sort of how he's going to implement that. But I mean, and one thing he was saying is, he noticed the same thing, that his gut is a lot better. And I know but it seems like more so, maybe not, but I mean, it seems like a lot of particularly female physique competitors end up with a lot of gut issues for some reason. Maybe it's trying to get down to that very low level of body fat, 10% or something like that, which is ungodly lean for a female.
Yeah, it's not sustainable long term. I can tell you that. Like some of the things that we do, it's like the one thing that I make sure I'm very cautious of: don't buy clothing when I'm in prep, because this is not going to be my normal body. But I see a lot of that gut health issues with the competitors, but also too, there's a lot of yo-yo dieting that's involved there. I mean, they'll go completely depleted, and then as soon as they get off stage, they're loading up with the sugars, the carbs, the ultra processed foods. There's a lot of that. So I think that people are really straining and stressing those systems of their body, and not really getting, the the benefits that they're hoping for. But yeah, there's a lot of bad foods, bad players that are involved in that. But there's the lifestyle itself is also not the healthiest at all times. So there are a lot of factors, the stress of it all. There's a ton of stress in that environment. So really learning how to manage all those things too is really important, because that can set up your gut big time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, so you guys are developing a product that, because a lot of, almost every protein bar, whey protein, whatever, is going to have some sort of sweetener. It's often sucralose. It's often ACE K. I mean, there's various ones that put in there some variable level of either they're problematic or they're not, depending on who you talk to. But what got you into the space of I want to develop, or you guys wanted to develop a different product? And tell us about the product and why you developed it.
Yeah, sure. So first off, I'm just going to let everybody know I am not a scientist. I am not a chemist or anything like that. That falls on one of my business partners. Um, but the reason why we created this particular product is what he noticed is his children were taking in way too much sugar and they were starting to, kind of suffer some of the effects of that. And so he had come to me and let me know that he was working on this project for his kids. And what he had done is he created a functional sweetener that was 100% plant-based, that didn't have any other excipients in it, wasn't mixed with these sugar alcohols. And he was trying to be really mindful of the gut health aspect of it. So, we are using prebiotics and probiotics in there just to kind of keep it balanced. And what he found was that the kids absolutely went crazy over the flavorings of it. So when he brought it to me, I was like, we can really bring this to market. And I think that would be a viable solution, and at least have another good option on the market versus just your artificially, chemically synthesized sweeteners out there that are just, destroying people or giving people, laxative-like effects. So I decided I was going to introduce it into the bodybuilding space because everybody there is using an artificial sweetener already because they're on these crazy diets where they don't get to take in sweets. So when they see things like Splenda, they run towards it. So I tested it out in that market, and the athletes were really going crazy over it. But then, of course, the people in the audience that tend to go to the bodybuilding shows don't really live bodybuilder lifestyles. A lot of them use a lot of ultra-processed foods and sugars. And we started getting a lot of attraction to that product with them also. We have a lot of diabetics in the crowd at the bodybuilding shows. So they were really excited to have an opportunity to try something like that. So really, we're just trying to introduce something to the market that's going to serve as a good substitute, but also not have the damaging effects that a traditional artificial sweetener would have.
And the name of the product and what actually it is, what does it come from? Do you know what it comes? Do you remember what it comes from?
Sure. So the product is called Nature Sweets with a Z. And what our developer has done is he's used, the bulk of the product is actually prebiotic fibers. So it's inulin, chicory, yacon are the bases with that. But we also have a spore-based probiotic inside. So it's Bacillus coagulans. There are 2 billion cultures per serving. And it's a small serving. It's just a 1 gram scoop. And it has the smallest amount of lohan guao and also stevia. So those are actually the smallest parts of the product. And then we use Madagascar vanilla as our flavoring. So it serves as a flavor enhancer and also a debitterizer. And also, too, we include the fulvic minerals. So we're helping to manage, that protein, nutrient uptake, but also to pull out some of the toxins and the crap from the system. So it's just a very unique spin on a sweetener. So it's like several supplements wrapped into the body of a sweetener.
Yeah, a lot of sweeteners will have this sort of comparison, 1-to-1 to sugar, 10-to-1 to sugar, it's just 10 times sweeter than sugar. Do you have any idea on the applicability, like this relative to like sugar?
So we have 3 different flavors with our sweeteners, so they vary a little bit. So our original one, which is the one that's considered the flavor enhancer, debitterizer, that one I'd say is probably about a couple hundred times sweeter than sugar. So again, we only use a 1 gram scoop in comparison to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So, a lot of people will ask me things about like baking with it. Right now, obviously, you would have to seriously adjust your recipes if you wanted to use it for baking. So we are going to be coming out with a dedicated baking line to compensate for the differences in the volume. The second flavor is our natural sugar flavor. That one we use just a different type of vanilla, so it doesn't have that caramel undertone to it. That one is probably about 90 times sweeter than sugar, so it doesn't seem to be quite as sweet just with that change of the vanilla. And then we have, for the kid in all of us, we have our pixie flavor, which literally tastes like a pixie stick. So imagine, you go to a candy store and you have a straw full of Nature Sweets. So you have that instead of pure sugar. So no sugar, no sugar alcohols, but it tastes just like a pixie stick. So
I'm wondering when you guys are developing these products. I mean, there's got to be some like very tasting thing. You're like this. Was there a lot of like this doesn't taste good? This does. I mean, how long did it take you to sort of figure that out? That
yeah,
recipe.
so we're really lucky because our partner and developer of this has 30 years experience with flavoring, with creating products. So he's been in contract manufacturing. He's owned 3 contract manufacturing facilities over his career, and he's a master flavoring specialist. So flavoring for him, literally, it's like you can give him a beverage, a food product, he'll taste it, and he's like, in his head, he's already doing calculations. He's like, if I put this much of this in here, it'll do this to the flavor profile. So he's actually really quick with the flavorings, which is truly a science. It really is amazing to watch him work.
Yeah, kind of a skill. It's interesting because we think about some people have certain skills. Some people have skills around flavor, which is kind of interesting. And you see that
Yeah,
with like master.
like how you're like how you were touching on, all the products that have all these other, ingredients in them. That's what we're actively doing. So we just recently started working with a company called RMC Nutrition, and they're in the holistic cancer care space. And they're now using our sweetener because they were originally going to put like a coconut sugar in there or honey into their product. But of course, in working with cancer patients, the last thing you want to be doing is giving them sugar. So we're actually using our sweetener now in place of those other sweeteners, just to make it a safer alternative for their cancer patients. So we're stepping outside of the bodybuilding space because truly this is something that impacts all households, all families, regardless of, if you're into sports or not. So the big vision with this is to really get this mainstream and not just to the consumers, but also in a multitude of products across the board, both food and beverage.
Let me ask you about, because you said you're soon to be what, 45, maybe 40, 46. I met you in person. You look fantastic. I mean, you could easily pass 10, 15 years younger, I would imagine. But do you attribute, how much? Because it's still, to me this day, I get people telling me, well, you shouldn't work out because you're older and you need to slow down. And I just don't. I don't understand that mentality. But can you talk about, particularly as a female, how that has either enhanced? Do you feel as a net positive? Obviously, you do it. So you must feel it's a net positive. How do you feel it's been beneficial to you?
I just look around at people in my peer group, people younger than me. Like, I know that me staying physically active, being very cognizant of what I put into my body, being very cognizant about the people that I surround myself with. This is not just, one or the other. I'm very protective of my health and my well-being, but staying physically active and keeping my muscles built up is, I think it's one of the most important things that I do. And we know, muscles are truly the organ of longevity. So if you want to grow old gracefully, you really should be concerned with your muscular systems and making sure that you're staying, active and moving and challenging yourself. And, I watch you doing the hops, the jumps, the skips, and it's like, man, if more people would do that, they would prevent so many other issues cascading down on them, just causing all kinds of other, problems to break down and just suffer. I mean, the older you get, the more you should be doing, not the less you should be doing. It's like I watch people in these retirement communities all around me. I'm in the land of retirement here in Florida. It's like everybody just slows down. I'm like, the more you allow yourself to just sit in that back seat and just let it ride, you're just opening yourself up for problems, not just physically, but mentally. Like, stay active, push yourself, challenge yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's very good. And I'm very cognizant about the fact that I want to be able to run fast when I'm 60. So I'm 2 years from now, I'll be hitting 60 and I want to be able to do those things. But, bodybuilding is obviously there's more, obviously there's a lot of dedication. How much, like, you said you're getting ready for a show here in a few months. I mean, how much what does a day look like for you with regard? Obviously, I mean, you can only train so much time during the day, but is it 2 workouts a day or how does that work for you?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm still on one a day. That will change. The last time I was competing, I was on 2-a-days, 6 days a week. So, I mean, on average, last time I was competing, I was eating about 6 meals a day, training twice a day. I don't count my third trip to the gym as training because it was just posing practice. But I would go to the gym 3 times a day. I would start my day at 5 a.m., go straight to the gym, do my fasted cardio, come home, go to my job. I was running a wellness center at the time. On my lunch break, I would go to the gym and do my bodybuilding training. And then when I'd go back to work and I would finish off my clients, close down my spa, and at 8 p.m., I would go to the gym again, practice my posing for a half an hour, then go home, work on the computer, go to bed around, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and start all over again. So the grind is really intense when it comes to bodybuilding because bodybuilding truly is a luxury sport, but we all still have to live, function, provide for our families and all that good stuff. So I just fit it in as much as I can. But now I'm training 6 days a week, but just once a day. And I'm sure that will change as I get closer to competition, just depending on how my body is coming in, what my coach sees, what I see, and we'll make adjustments from there. But yeah, 6 days a week, and about an hour of my workout. And then I'm starting to throw some more cardio back in there too. But you and I got to have a conversation about my lack of cardio, and that's just because I had suffered a pretty serious illness and almost passed away, and I just don't have the lung capacity right now. But I am able to get 30 minutes on the step mill now versus, walking for 3 minutes on a treadmill and needing a rescue inhaler.
Yeah, that's one thing. Because I had a good friend of mine who was competing in bodybuilding. I remember he was, morning would get up and he would walk on the treadmill, like, it would be like an incline walk for an hour or something like that. I mean, that was, I think that's been standard bodybuilding protocol. I mean, there's not a lot of bodybuilders, I don't think, doing a lot of high intensity sprint interval training. That seems to be correct me if that, is that counterproductive to what you're trying to do with the maintaining muscle, or how does that?
There's a really big push on, the sprinting, the cardio based work and stuff. And I think, you have a couple different camps in this world as to, you don't need to do all that cardio, or you need to step it up and do 10 times the amount of cardio. My workouts tend to be quite cardiovascular heavy anyways, because I do a lot of supersets. So I just go straight from one to the next to the next. So I'm doing 3 different type of exercises back to back, take a small break and go right back to it again. So, I'm staying fully engaged the whole time that I am actually doing my bodybuilding training. But then, yeah, coach wants me doing an additional 45 minutes of step mill, treadmill, bicycle, something afterwards. So yeah, there's a lot of focus on the cardio side of things. But yeah, we have a lot of competitors. You'll see them. I mean, they're out there doing sprints. They're doing high intensity work. They're killing it. So
Is there, well, let me just, for people's perspective, I mean, what kind of, are you using, I mean, because there's, some thought of heavier weights being beneficial. Other people saying it's not so much heavy weights, how much contraction you put in there. You can do that with lighter weights. What is your preference with that? Do you like moving heavy weights, or do you prefer, peak contraction and time under tension, that type of stuff?
Yeah, again, you're never going to get, a general consensus with anyone on this, because you're going to have those camps that are just absolutely locked and loaded. You could show them the newest, latest, greatest science, and they'll argue with you. But I try to mix it up a little bit, but I'm really not one to do the crazy, heavy, hard lifting, because I want to preserve my joints and my back, and I have some considerations. Previous career in construction, which really took a toll on my back. So, I'm very mindful of that. So I do more intense training, not quite as heavy, but I'm not, moving light weights either. So it's definitely a challenge, but I'm not trying to be the next Eddie Hall or anything like that. I know those strong men. I think they're amazing, but that is not my cup of tea. I want to preserve my joints and my back. And so, yeah, I don't do that stuff. So when people come to me like, oh, what's your max, deadlift or bench press, I'm like, I don't know. I have no clue. And I'm not interested in finding out what my max is. I tried some crazy CrossFit exercise once, really hurt my back. I was like, you guys can keep that. I'm not trying to max out on every single thing that I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think single rep maxes aren't really conducive to bodybuilding anyway. But it's more of a skill than a the neuromuscular skill, I guess, for a lot of that. But do you find that, and this is an important, because I see a lot of people, they're younger, they're training hard, they're heavy. I mean, they eat a certain way, and then like I eat my way. I eat a very low carb carnivore diet, and people say, well, you're not gonna maximize your ability to get strong. And I'm already pretty strong. I mean, for my age, I'm pretty damn strong. But the thing I notice for me is diet actually impacts how my joints feel significantly. Right. And I think that's a lot of young people don't realize that. I think is that, there's going to be a point where, you get to 30, 40, whatever it might be, and you can't train anymore because your joints hurt. And then you feel like, oh, it's because I trained so hard. And it might have been because your diet was having an impact. Do you notice any difference I mean, have you changed your diet strategy over the years? I suspect you have.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just a very curious person, so I have to try. Like I want to experience everything. I'm just a very curiously natured person, so I play with diet. I see how it affects me. I've tried it all from extended fasting to playing with juicing my vegetables to carnivore, keto, just more of a balanced approach to things. And I can definitely notice the more like carbs and stuff that I take in, I feel a little bit more inflamed. My joints feel a little bit more achy. So I'm happy that my coach is really listening to me when I said, my freezer is full of meat. So let's utilize that. So he is keeping me pretty heavy on the protein side of things and not so much on the carbs. But yeah, I would say I definitely notice a difference when I switch up my diet. I really enjoy keeping it more towards the carnivore, very light veggies. I take in some just because I simply enjoy them. Like I like bitters, so I love arugula, things like that. So I'll sprinkle a little bit of something like that, maybe with my eggs or whatever. But for the most part, I could stay carnivore and be pretty darn happy with that one.
You're probably one of the few people that knows how much lean body mass they actually have on. Other people say, well, I think I have this, if you're carrying, 20, 30% body, that's really hard to really get an accuracy. Well, when you get down to contest shape, exactly how much muscle you have down to the pound or the ounce or something like that. So when you compete, you typically your weigh, I don't know what your weigh, I mean, you can share that. And how much protein does that require to support that?
So what's funny is this time around, I'm keeping my weight down lower. Typically off season, I hover around, and it's crazy because it just sounds so obscure, but I used to hover around 170 pounds. I'm 5'8". Like I said, I've been training since I was 14 years old. And it was a struggle for me to come into competition around 150. As a figure competitor, that's a lot of weight. So this time around, my off season, I was hovering around 155, and I was eating predominantly carnivore that whole, like a good chunk of that time. So I was hovering around my contest weight, and now that I started off there, I think my weight is going to be more in the, probably I might hit stage around between 140, 145, which again is very unusual for me. But yeah, body fat percentage, I've never bothered to do a scan or anything like that, or do, the testing, because they all have so many variables. Like I was going to go and do a DEXA scan, but at the time when I was competing, I'm normally drinking about 1 to 2 gallons of water a day. And, when I was talking to the people, DEXA kids, basically like you can't drink that much water and do your scan, you're not going to get an accurate reading. And then you have the people that want to do the caliber pinches, which I think is just the most ridiculous thing when it comes to measuring the body fat percentage, because it's not taking into account the visceral or anything else like that. So I never really worry about the percentage that much. The only thing that matters to me is, can I see all of those clearly defined muscle groups, and am I getting that slight feathering of the muscles? So, I don't know. For bigger competitors, we need to keep a little bit more body fat on. It's not going to be like the bodybuilders where they're hovering, in the single digits, like the 6%. I don't need to be that hard. But maybe around, I don't know, maybe 10%. I don't know. I'd have to take a stab at it. I'm not sure because I've never done true testing on it. So,
And how much? And so if you come in at 140, 150, what does the protein requirement look like for you on a day? How do you get that typically?
let's see. Minimum, I try to get a gram of protein per pound. So, that's just a minimum. If I can get more than that, I'm all for it. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'll just drink my eggs. I'm past like eating them. So it's like if I need an extra boost of, protein, I'm like, grab a carton of egg whites or grab some eggs and just down them. So whatever it takes for me to get the extra protein, I just do it. Extra can of tuna in between, my drive from here to the gym or whatever. So yeah, I try to keep it higher than 1 gram of protein per pound. But yeah, minimum is 1.
Yeah. Okay. And so,
If I can get 2, I'm doing great.
yeah, I mean, one of the things, some people, they get very, very hypocaloric. I mean, obviously, the longer time you have, the less you gotta, you don't have to take these drastic. So how long does you typically prepare for? Like, what would be a cut? Would that be like 6 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that?
Yeah, on average, a standard cut is going to be 12 weeks. Um, I I'm giving myself longer just due to the fact that I can't, or I won't say can't. I haven't been able to do cardio the way that I want to really hone in on that conditioning. So I was giving myself extra time with this prep, and also to running this business because it's 24/7 nonstop. So I gave myself extra leeway, but standard is going to be a 12-week prep.
Yeah. Okay. And what competition are you targeting? What's one you're competing at? And I think it's in October.
Yeah, so the competition I'm going to be doing is going to be down here in Florida. It's the Atlantic Coast, Tim Gardner's Atlantic Coast. It's like a major sports festival, kind of like the Arnold would be, or the more so like the Arnold, because it's going to be multi-sport. I think even medieval jousting is in there somewhere. But so I'll be focused on doing that show. That show is also an Olympia qualifier. So my original goal was to just make it to the pro circuit. I wanted to challenge myself to getting to the pro level. Of course, with a very competitive nature, that's just not enough. So I want to see if I can actually get qualified for the Olympia. The Olympia is the biggest, best of the world coming in for bodybuilding. So that's my goal right now to get to that one.
Where is that held? What city is it going to be in? Like Miami or?
It's going to be in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so
yeah, Fort Lauderdale. It's Tim Gardner Productions. He has several shows throughout the region, but this is a really big one. I mean, I think he's pulling in quite a list of celebrities to be there. I think even Joe Rogan has been tapped to be there, so it should be a pretty interesting one. I don't know if they actually got him to commit to that one 100%, but it's going to be a big sports festival. So if I can make a good mark there, I'll be pretty happy.
When what day it is? Well, what day it is? What day is it?
Yeah, it is the 16th and 17th of November.
Of November. Okay, interesting. Awesome. So
yeah, so if you're not traveling around or doing any conferences, if you want to come on down to Florida.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where I'll be in November. I know I'm going to the Galapagos Islands sometime around then. So I was going to say I'm going to be in Miami like a few weeks before that. I know for something else, but
yeah.
Let me ask you.
I think we're trying to get over to that one too.
Let me ask you a question. So you said you're competing in figure. Is that what I heard you say? Because
yes.
there are a number of categories now, because it used to be just bodybuilding, and then sometime about 20 years ago it branched off. What are all the categories? And maybe you could explain the difference, because I don't know. I mean, what are the differences? I mean, obviously bodybuilding is bodybuilding. What figure, fitness, bikini? What are the differences between those?
Yep, sure. So we'll go from smallest in size up to the greatest in size. So bikini is going to be your commercial print, like your beach, your bikini magazine. That's your ideal bikini competitor. She's just going to carry a little bit more muscle than a standard commercial print model. Going from there, you're going to have the fitness division. Those are the women who have backgrounds in gymnastics, cheerleading, dance. So they're very fit athletes, but there's an emphasis on their routines, the choreography, things like that. And they are truly amazing athletes. That's probably one of my favorite divisions. From there, you step it up to wellness. The wellness division is going to be essentially a bikini competitor from the belly button up. And from the waist down, it's going to be heavy emphasis on oversized glutes and quads. So kind of a really fit Kardashian lower body.
And that was called, what was that called again? That was called what?
That's called wellness.
Wellness. Okay.
Wellness, yeah. Take a look at some of those girls. It's kind of like a Clydesdale lower and like a bikini. It's just they're massively structured on the lower portion of the body. They're amazing, but I will never make it in the wellness division. I'll just tell you that right now. I don't have enough on the hind side to carry me in that one. But then after that is the figure competitors. So this is going to be a really heavy emphasis on, wide lats, wide shoulders, very tiny waist, and developed legs, but not overblown. So it's really a really fit Miss America pageant. So the emphasis is going to be on presentation, poise, your overall look, but also the muscularity. It's literally it's a upside down triangle. So you have nice wide shoulders, tiny little waist, and developed legs. So that's my wheelhouse. And then we have the physique competitors, which the women are the miniature bodybuilders. And then from there, you have bodybuilding. If you look up my girlfriend, Andrea Shaw, she is the current residing Miss Olympia champ. She's massive. She's just absolutely massive. Nicest woman you'll ever meet. But like, if you encountered her, you'd be like, it's like, please don't hurt me, because the sizing is just outrageous. So,
yeah,
but
it seems like it's kind of interesting when you describe these different body types, the wellness with the lower extremities, and then more the figure, I guess, with the more wider, kind of V-shaped type thing. Some of it seems like genetic. I mean, it's like you just kind of have this and you're going to do that. I mean, is that how it is now? It's like this is what you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can definitely tell the people who have the right structure for the division that they're in. And some people try to force it, and you just can't, because either you are built naturally with that structure. Of course, you can always build up different regions of the body, but I mean, I already had the structure where I was wide across the top. I had a small waist, and I have good development in my legs. But when you have someone who's just straight up and down and they're like, I want to do figure, it's like you don't have the structure for it. So yes, genetics is always going to play a major role in what you do in this type of industry. And whatever there is afterwards, whatever people do, that's on them. But yeah, you have to have the right structure for it. Like I would never be able to do bikini or wellness, and I'll never have the desire to do bodybuilding. So like I'm in the right place for myself. I mean, even if I walk through a crowd at any of these shows, people will always peg me for a figure competitor, even if I'm out of season. So.
Okay, just on your general structure there, and it is this sport, because I like I said, I tangentially, because I've spent a lot of time at gym, so I've seen a lot of bodybuilders, and I had friends that are doing that. Is it? I don't know. Has it peaked? Is it growing still? I mean, or is it? I mean, the other division, because all the different divisions. But what is like the sort of the overall impression of fitness, physique competitions in general? Is there still a huge is a growing sport?
Oh, it is definitely a growing sport. Bodybuilding has always had like a really special place in our culture, but I mean, now there is such explosive growth. I mean, to the tune of, we were just at an event, we have our vendor booth, because we're promoting not only our sweetener, but also our supplements. But what used to be a 2-day show is now a 5-day long show. So, here we are, we're at 16 hours a day working these vendor booths 5 days in a row because of the sheer number of competitors. I think there were about 1,300 competitors for this last show that I was just at just a week ago. So, I mean, the sport is definitely growing. And when you look at how many shows are actually being conducted across the country and outside of the country, because the NPC and the IFBB is an international federation. So, I mean, they're global and the draw is massive. So yeah, the sport is definitely growing, and we have some really fresh, invigorating ideas coming into the sport. Really trying to bring in more people to it, but also to expand it by creating more like these fitness expo style things. So you're having multi sports coming in, so it really helps to grow the audience base and expose more people to bodybuilding.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, when you look at the general population, you'd say the general population is getting sicker and worse. I mean, you look around and everybody looks kind of soft, and it's kind of, even the young folks are like, I mean, there's a zombie apocalypse. You guys are getting eaten. You're not going to be able to defend yourself. But so it's interesting. So there's growth in this area, and I've seen some. I mean, as I see the incredible, I mean, I think the training has gotten better. I mean, we've just gotten so much more. I think the access to knowledge is still, I mean, because everybody can go look and get expert advice, and now people are putting in applications. So you see so many more athletes that are doing just incredibly phenomenal things that before that, it was only a few guys that had the knowledge to do that. And now it's been shared and distributed. So you see more people doing that. But in general, I mean, well, and I think generally, as you mentioned, I think it's so important to be stronger as we get older and to be functional, and it has applications outside of just the sport itself, and hopefully, people there can be examples to not like I said, not everybody wants to compete, not everybody wants to do the
Right.
it takes a certain mindset, as you know. I mean, you got to be kind of obsessive, you got to be kind of a little weird to. I'm the same way. I'm real competitive, and I just like doing weird stuff, and it's just what makes me happy. But do you find, in general, I mean, I guess, because in general, I think it's a good thing. I mean, there are some negatives. I mean, how do you avoid the negative things? What are the sort of the negative things you see people doing that are involved in this, and how do we avoid that?
Well, the big negatives for me is like the social media stuff is just it can be really toxic. And I see a lot of people. I don't know if it's a need for attention or what, but I'm a pretty private and quiet person, so I don't involve myself in too many things like that. Of course, now with the business, I kind of have to have a little bit more of a presence on social media. Um, but I I think this industry kind of lends itself to obsessive kind of lifestyles or issues like food balance things, social interactions, people not being able to relate to you because you're on a path that doesn't fit the common thread for how people live. Again, it's like I don't have very many people that I can talk to about like what I'm doing and then not be like, you're crazy. Like, how can you not like eat chocolate cake or drink beer or, go out and just like cut loose a little bit? It's like, well, because my goals are completely different from what your goals are. And yeah, I do have that obsessive mindset because my goal is to excel at this sport. And that requires me to put everything else to the side. But I think the pitfalls are people look at you like you're an alien because you don't drink alcohol, or you focus on getting sleep, or you focus on making sure you're making time to prepare clean food. So yeah, I think a lot of people just kind of look at you like an alien, and they don't really know how to deal with you anymore. So it's like, yeah.
Well, again, you mentioned you try to surround yourself. I mean, your husband obviously is. I think I don't know if he's competed in body, but he obviously lifts, and he's into that lifestyle too. I would assume you'd have to. I mean, you'd have to kind of in many ways. I mean, I guess there's some people who have spouses and family members that totally don't do it, but they support them. But I mean, I mean, you've made an effort to surround yourself with supportive and helpful people. I assume, correct?
Yeah, but of course we all have the people in our lives that we do, and family normally doesn't understand, what you're doing. It's like I often hear, but you're thin enough, but you already look good enough. Like just eat this, just come join us. And I'm like, no, but that's going to derail me from what I'm trying to do. Now, my husband, he's not interested in competing at all. He has competed before. Actually, he was really involved in track and field, and he was a swimmer. He was qualified for the Olympics for throwing the hammer. So, I mean, he's always had that kind of background. He did do one bodybuilding competition, but the restrictive diets and that kind of routine just isn't his cup of tea. I think I would have been really good for the military because I like structure and discipline and doing the same thing over and over and over again until it's perfect. So bodybuilding is just a perfect fit for me, not so much for my husband, but he is my biggest fan, my biggest cheerleader. And even when I go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning, he'll go sit in a massage chair or something, but he will go to the gym with me at least. So yeah, I always support.
I didn't know he was a hammer thrower because I threw Highland Games, and there's some we had a lot of hammer throws, and hammer is such a cool event. I when you see those top level hammer throwers throwing, it's so incredibly athletic.
Oh yeah,
amazing to see, and so it's cool to know. So
yeah, he's a big guy. He always gets mistaken for a bodybuilder and stuff. He's like, no, he's like, that's all her. I'm support system. So
yeah. So I'm sure he still trains though. I mean, he's still.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he still trains, but just not with the intention of really getting much bigger. His thing is, as long as I know what my wife weighs currently and I can, make up for the adrenaline boost that she gets if she gets mad at me, as long as I can handle that much weight, I'm good. So, he's not pushing for moving heavy weights anymore. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm 260 right now. I've got enough weight on me. I'm kind of actually trying to figure out ways to slim down a little bit, and not lose a lot of strength doing it. But it's one of those things where you get to a point where you don't need it anymore, and pushing for those, 1 rep maxes or whatever it might be. So, so let me just, I guess, because we're getting close on time here. So remind me, so the product is called Nature Sweets, and there's a Z at the end of that, is yep. the sweetener that you guys are marketing right now. If somebody wanted to try it, or how does it come packaged, and how can they try it, and where can they go to find that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So our website is Biomediceuticals.com, and it is a mouthful, and I apologize for that, but you can get the Nature Sweets on there. Everybody that goes onto our website, first-time shoppers, they get a 20% discount by signing up for the newsletter. So definitely please use that as your introduction to it. But it comes in the form of a canister. It is a powder. It's a very fine powder. There are 60 servings in that. And 2 of the flavors are currently available live on the website. The Pixie is still on hold, but we have been giving out samples of that. And the general consensus is it tastes like a pixie stick. So, but we do have the 2 other flavors available. You'll find descriptions of the flavor profiles on all of them. And we normally get our orders out to people within just a couple of days. But yeah, definitely, people should go there and give it a try, especially if you're just looking for something as an alternative to the normal players that are out there on the market. It's a clean, safe alternative. It's not going to spike the blood glucose. Actually, Dave Feldman did a live test of the sweetener, and he was really surprised by it. And he was like, you know what, I might actually start using sweetener again in my tea, because he always uses the glucose monitors. And he was really impressed by the fact that when it should have been going up at the highest point, it was actually going down. His blood glucose levels were going down. So, but yeah, everybody go on there, give it a try, and check it out.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing that with us, and thanks for the chat. And good luck to you on the competition. I believe I'm following you on social media on Instagram. I don't know if you'll update that when you compete, hopefully, and so we can see what's going on. And maybe I'll catch you guys next time I'm in Florida. You guys remind me where you are in Florida again.
So we live on Hutchinson Island. So we're about 10 minutes south of Vero Beach. And it's just beautiful here. It's super quiet. But yeah, we're blessed. We get up in the morning, put our feet right in the sand in the water, and start the day.
Is that on the Atlantic side?
Yeah.
Forgive me, I missed that. Okay, yeah.
Yep,
okay.
We're on the Atlantic coast. Like I said, about 10 minutes south of Vero Beach, about 45 minutes north of West Palm.
Got it. Okay. So
So,
interesting.
but yeah, if your people are looking to follow us as well on Instagram, they can find us there at Biomediceuticals. That's BIOMEDICEUTICALS. Sorry, it's a mouthful, but that's what came to me when I asked for some support from the man upstairs, and that's what came to me. But yeah, so maybe next time around, I'll get you on my YouTube channel and we'll do a little interview and further discuss carnivore and how that can be more a benefit for athletes and ways in which we can help to educate people on their diet choices.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Take care now.